splendid good morning to one and all. Our entire trialing. Yes, Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique. I just have to shout out all of the islands this morning. Good morning. Let's say good morning to those of you listening in the should I say, the diaspora. Some folks like to say it in that way. Good morning to you. Hope all is well, whatever country you're listening or whatever part of the world you're at this morning and you're listening to us. Blessed morning to you. Welcome to another edition of To The Point. It's Monday and it's already the 7th day within the month of November. Man, time flies. Just so like was just the other day I'm saying, hey, we have started the month of November. We already 7 days within the month. Let me say good morning to all, wherever you are, especially those of you via our social media platform. Yes, Facebook. Good morning to you. Hope all is well. When you chime in this morning, don't forget to share the live. And those of you via YouTube channel, those of you via our website, that's GBN's website, gbn.gd. Blessed morning to one and all. Those of you listening via 105.5, 105.9, good morning to you also, and welcome. Well, you know what happens on a Monday here on To The Point. Usually my co-host, Mr. Sylvan McIntyre, is with us. I'm going to chip him in shortly. We say good morning to him as soon as I, of course, allow him to pop in. Say good morning to him. And you know what we do on a Monday? We talk everything that is emergency. If I could summarize it in just one word, everything that is emergency. We talk about that, whether it's, as simple as someone getting a cut in their hand. We teach you how to, we not teach you, but we tell you, more or less tell you. It's a thought pattern that goes with it also. But we tell you how the ways in which you can get that sorted out in the easiest way, as you being a regular person and not be, maybe you may not be that professional aspect of it. You're a regular individual, so that could help. And for the feedback we've been getting, lots of folks are happy to hear ways in which they can, of course, go about and get that done and save someone's life in the simplest way possible until they get to, of course, the professionals pop in and help out this and help them take the necessary steps that goes further than what they can handle. And this morning, with no exception, let me say good morning to Sylvan. Sylvan, good morning to you, sir. How are you? How are you doing this morning? Thanks for being with us.
Good morning to you, GT. Good morning again to our followers, viewers, listeners, wherever you are. It is once again a pleasant morning to everyone. We're happy to be in the land of the living in God's world, and we are happy to be on this program. As you have said, we're always excited on Monday morning because we speak everything emergency readiness, emergency response, and from small to as large as we are professionally able to take it. And we look forward again this morning to an interesting program.
Yep.
And as usual, we would be expecting people to chime in with their calls, asking the questions. And even if we don't have all of the answers, we might be able to direct you to where you can get the answers. Right. The intent of this program we established is not to make anyone an expert in the field. It's a matter of giving people an understanding and an appreciation as to what to do if something really happened. And if you see something happen and you have doubts about it, this is the program where you can come on and you can have some of these cleared, clarified, and you can get some knowledge yourselves. We're hoping that this program could go as long as possible. But as we move into this Christmas season, maybe we may suspend at the end of November for a while, and then coming in 2023 with something new, have some innovations, have some practical issues. We are intending to integrate and inform more persons to be part of this program, so that at the end of the day, Grenada could be better prepared to deal with emergencies.
All right. Tell me, Sylvan, any major happenings over the weekend that you may want to throw to the listening and viewing public this morning?
Yes, I can. As you realize, we follow what's happening around the Caribbean in particular. Mm-hmm. In some cases, we look at something happening around the world. But within the last couple of days, we had a hurricane, Category 2, that impacted Belize. And Belize is part of the Caribbean region, one of the areas that SEDIMA is responsible for, and NADMA is affiliated to, and Grenada indirectly. We do have people that live in Belize, and over the last couple of days, they were impacted by a Category 2 hurricane. It devastated, decimated a few areas. Flooding was one of the major problems that they had. I have not had reports about big casualties and so forth, but I know the infrastructure took a really, really hard hit. Again, we've seen, even in Grenada, where the weather forecast spoke of insistent rain that we experienced over the last couple of days, and NADMA did very, very wisely give some advice as to how, along with the Met Office, as to how people can look forward to dealing with these kind of emergencies from natural phenomena. And they did speak of flooding, landslides, etc., that could have happened. And still, we are in the hurricane season, and there are still some weather conditions looming over the horizon that can affect us. So the whole ambit of emergency response is something that will not go away, and we cannot ever be too prepared to deal with it. Also, we look at, crime and security, and all of these is part of my background as well. And we look at some unfortunate incidents, and what took the international community was that alleged murder situation in the community of Parish of St. David. And coincidentally, it's a community that I lived in for some time, and I knew those people who were involved. And when you examine the circumstances allegedly that may have happened, there would be a number of questions that could be asked as to whether, if people see certain things, how they can intervene, and if they do, how they should handle it, and what aspects of the investigation and involvement of the police that will happen. So all of these things raise a number of questions as to how we can deal with it, and whether or not we are best prepared, or we could be better prepared at the community level to deal with things, and how we can become more or less our brothers and our neighbors' keeper. And we can do that by, developing ourselves with particular skills and knowledge that we can have.
So true, man. So true. Because sometimes, Sylvan, there are signs that points itself in a particular direction that sometimes we don't look at, and we look at it as a normal thing. But sometimes there are signs or that individuals may put up themselves, and sometimes as a community we may not take it serious. And if we pay attention to these signs and maybe report it or talk to someone in authority, issues like that could maybe have gone to a different direction than the direction it actually went to. You understand?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it is saying from a lot of angles that we have to become more and more connected to each other. We have to be more compassionate. And as you rightly identified, we have to be more situationally aware of what's happening around us. People may be walking around, and they could be walking shells. There could be zombies. There could be people who can just snap, on the click of a finger. And there might be other people who are there with internal needs that if we sometimes hold a little conversation with them, do a little bit of inquiry, we can definitely find some means in some ways where we can help. And that may in itself prevent an emergency or a catastrophe from occurring. So it comes down to that point where we are now, where it becomes a little bit somber when a situation ends up in tragedy. But these programs like this one will be able to better equip us that if there are things that are happening that we were not prepared for, or they happen unexpectedly, but we are empowered with certain knowledge and information, because the more knowledge you have, the more confident you are in dealing with a situation, and you feel that you can prevent a condition from becoming worse because you have some knowledge as to how to deal with it. Yeah. So true.
So well, let's move into this, of course, to this topic. We have a couple of topics that we want to discuss this morning. We want to kick it off this morning with the head-to-toe survey. And I've been hearing about that before, especially from individuals who in the medical field. But we want to talk to it now on a regular, in terms of individuals who may get into situations where something occurs. And you want to do that examination before you do anything else. Explain to our viewing and listening audience this morning that head-to-toe survey and what it really entails. And I do have some other question that will follow suit, but give us a little bit of synopsis on that head-to-toe survey and what it really means.
Right. So I'm not surprised that you have a whole slew of questions that you ask, or else would not have been GT, obviously. So I'm not surprised I have some locked up there. So we want to give it, as usual, the context and the background into which the toe survey is really required and what that really is. Let me just say in a nutshell, it is basically an assessment when something has happened from the crown of the head to the sole of the feet. I think that's also like a biblical kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sole of the head. Yeah. Right. Good. So it comes in medically as well. When some emergency occur, how one, and in this case, you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to be a doctor, a nurse, or you don't have to be fully medically trained or otherwise to have that top to toe survey. Remember, we said our intention is to be able to give community people some knowledge as to how to react to deal with a situation. So let us look at a few instances where that is likely to occur, where somebody may fall, they may have some injury, and you're not sure how to deal with it. We want to go past the stage where somebody end up in an emergency and you see a crowd of people or an individual just run around, they scoop them up and they throw them in the back of a transport.
Now take a picture.
Take a picture. Yeah. And that's the end of the story. So I am thinking that now that we're giving these kind of information, people are becoming more knowledgeable. We are going to see, and I want you to prove to me and some of our callers to tell us that they are beginning to see a different kind of reaction when some accident or something occurs. So you may be at the National Stadium at an intercall game, might be a football game, might be one of those events where an artist is brought in. Somebody might throw one of those fire things somewhere. Unfortunately, they got into the stadium with it, and some people panic and they decide to run down the stairs, and someone fall, they may knock their head, and you're not too sure as to what may have happened to them. So you may go hiking over to Mount Kwakwa, Seven Sisters Fall, somebody slipped, they may have fallen, you suspect they knocked their head against a rock, and you just decide, I'm going to just pick them up and go with them. And you may be in a school, and some children might be playing, they slide down the stairs, they slide somewhere in the playing field, they fall off, they may have a whiplash, and you may just go pick them up, and the teacher may just direct, get the person up, get them away, get them to the hospital, or call the police, as the case may be. So we want to go past that. So this top to toe survey involves a careful assessment. Now, this is undertaken when you have time to do it. There is a quick assessment that one can do, meaning that you look for the airway, breathing, circulation. Really quickly, you realize the person, they might be breathing, or they might look semi-conscious, as the case might be. In this case, the person is lying on the ground. You don't know what happened to them. What you want to do is to look from the top of the head to see whether or not there is any visible sign of swelling or any form of blood or marks that may be at the top of the head. That's your first point of checking. So you would feel, and I think we have something that we can show later on. And if we don't, we do have a few programs where most of these things that we spoke about, we're going to run them through in a summary of the emergency that we spoke about on this program. But you start at the top of the head and you go through. You look now to the base of the skull, the back of the head, and you push your fingers on either side without moving the person and checking to see what may happen or any signs on the side of the head. You look at the ear, and what are you looking for? You're looking for any kind of blood or fluid that might be coming from the ear. There's something called a cerebrospinal fluid. It is something that looks like more like oily color, or there may be some sign of blood that may come from the ear. Once one sees that, you know that definitely there could be a cracked skull that or some injury definitely that may happen internally in the head. There could be some kind of internal bleeding. And then you look at the eye, and so to see whether or not the person is reacting to light. So if you turn the eyelids open, the person may squinch or not, or if you put a little flashlight, you may see the pupil getting smaller, so that can tell you whether the person is conscious or unconscious. You look to the nose again, so you see the head has a lot of parts you can check.
Yeah.
The nose to see whether or not there's stuff that might be stuck in there that could prevent the person from bleeding. And you look to the mouth, open it slightly to see whether or not the teeth might be broken, there might be some injury in there might be some bleeding that can also go to the back of the throat that can sometimes cause the person not to be able to breathe. And then you go along the neck, along the shoulders, You go along the arms, one hand or one arm at a time, all the way out to the fingers. You check your feel and so forth, whether or not. Then you go over to the left. Then you would go down to the chest, feeling on either side of the hip, middle of the chest, the abdomen, pressing on that slightly to see whether or not the person may have internal bleeding or they might be reacting to some pressure that you are exerting. And then you slide yourself slowly down, pressing on the side of the hip. Once you're doing that, you're looking for reaction from the person. And this, again, is done within a couple of minutes. There is no set of time spending there.
Because I want to chime in here and ask you this, because it could be critical in doing that head-to-toe survey on a time nature, for one.
Yeah.
It could be something of an incident where someone is damaged very bad. You understand?
Right.
There could be excessive bleeding. And so is there a time factor that you should do that? Or is it necessary to do that at a particular time? Is there a particular time to do that assessment?
Yes, there is and this is why I indicated the real quick primary survey is looking at the 3 life-saving conditions: airways, breathing, and circulation. You have another 3 to 5 minutes or so, or within the first to 5 minutes, to be able to conduct this assessment. So that is a really quick assessment of the individual. If there is more time, so for instance, you find that the person is breathing, they do have a heartbeat, and you are waiting for the appropriate transportation to take them to the hospital, you can further examine them by exposing their clothes and all of that. Mm-hmm. So you do have a time factor within which you need to really quickly. You don't want to go there sitting for half day, half an hour, just examining or playing with somebody. That's not it. 1 to 5 minutes to 3 to 5 minutes, that should be over. The person should be assessed and they should be monitored. Yeah. Do you have any further questions?
Let me also ask you this: within the nature of the injury that you may have noticed in your initial stages, then you have, depending on the nature of the injury, you looked at the head and you notice, yes, that person is breathing. So that's a plus there, because once someone is able to breathe, there's some form of continuation of life. What other critical part in that head-to-toe survey is needed to be checked at that time as you go along?
Yes. Before I answer you directly to that, let me just point out that there are some experts who may say to you that once someone is lying on the ground, they appear to be sick or otherwise, you activate the EMS, the Emergency Medical Services, or the medical system, you call.
Yeah.
There are others who may say to you that you do the assessment first and determine that it is not a case where you need to call the hospital. No, that's a give and take. That's a touch and go, sometimes a discretion issue. I always prefer to err on the side of caution, that if there's an emergency, I see something, if I have the ability to, or get someone, I say just call, let the hospital know there's something that you are, and you would further speak to them on it. So they are aware that something is happening in a particular locale. So in some cases, a person might be intoxicated and may just be taking a rest on the ground. They may just be passed out. And you don't want to be calling out an ambulance to just come check somebody out that is just intoxicated, that they would recover after a good rest in a safe place. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there are some injuries that definitely would be a red letter for you to definitely, any suspicion of internal bleeding. That sign that we mentioned, that bleeding from the ear, is definitely a call emergency, that person needs to be medically assessed quickly, because the brain, the seat of the central nervous system, would definitely be affected. And so you have to get the emergency people involved immediately so that person could be checked out. And having said so, once you suspect somebody may have fallen, let's say, about 3 times their normal height or the average height of an individual, you could suspect very likely the person may have spinal injury.
Yeah.
Or once you figure that the person may have fallen and they struck somewhere hard enough, you can suspect that there could be spinal injury. The other one that you want to look at is that discoloration of the body, or that reaction to the pressing of the stomach or the chest, etc. The person may react or they may not necessarily react, they may be unconscious. But you recognize that that area is dark, it is swollen, it seems very tender. You recognize that that person could have internal bleeding. That is definitely a load and go case. It's a situation where don't delay, that person needs to get to the hospital immediately. Right. Yeah, you have any further on that?
Well, nothing further on that for now. We drew for a break. Let's take the break. When we come back, we discuss some more. We're coming right back, folks. It's To The Point for today, Monday.
On your marks!
I want you folks to play these 3 games from the NLA. Daily pick 3 cash flow and play with. You will be supporting sports and culture, nation building and our future. So go out and play, folks, make it a must. You will see what the National Lottery is doing for us. When you play pick 3 cash flow and play with, the NLA will support you all the way.
Starting September 30th, Monday to Friday, these 3 games will be drawn mid-morning, 9:45 a.m., midday, 12:45 p.m., and evenings, 7:45 p.m. The National Lotteries, supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Sunday money day.
Vaccine safety is always a top priority. Like other vaccines, the COVID-19 vaccines being developed have been through the same trial phases and rigorous process required for all vaccines. Global efforts on the development of the vaccines are built on existing research from previous coronaviruses like MERS and SARS-1. As COVID-19 vaccines are approved for their broad use in the population, be reassured that they will continue to be monitored to identify any adverse events. Your safety is our top priority. Vaccines bring us closer. Choose to get vaccinated.
Welcome back, our listeners and viewers this morning. Myself, GT, and co-host Mr. Sylvan McIntyre with us this morning. And the usual discussion that we do have on a Monday tells you ways in which you can help or assist someone just in case there is an emergency. And this morning, one of our topics that we're speaking on is that head and toe survey. So, but I have one more question I would like to ask on the head and toe survey. Welcome back. What as an individual who's about to perform a head-to-toe survey, what are some of the, if once that individual who you are going to do that survey, if they have a level of alertness, they are alerted of what is going on. Let's say whatever happened there, they're alert. What are some of the questions that an individual would ask that person? I see you smiling for some reason. What kind of questions would you ask that person? What can I ask them?
Yeah, what you can ask them and what kind of a response should you be expecting from them is also very critical. You, as someone rendering some level of assistance, you would want to test the person's level of consciousness. Yes. And you can do that in a few ways. If you touch the person, they may react to the touch. And there's something called verbal stimuli, meaning that if you speak to the person, they should be able to respond to you. You would ask them some questions, and one of the questions you do not want to, you do not ask them open-ended questions like, "Are you okay?" and they'll just say yes. Are you not? And they would say no. You want to ask them, "How are you feeling?" Then the person is expected to say to you how they are feeling. Now, the other thing you'd want to ask them is if they know where they are, what time of the day it is, what month it is, where are they from. Now, asking them these questions would give you a line that you can follow. That would say to you how injured that person is, how conscious that person is, and what the severity of the injury is likely to be. So you want to be able to check that person's mental status or the level of consciousness on the scene. So these are some basic things that you can ask them. It is good to ask them, how are you feeling, or what are you feeling, and where are you, time of the day, etc. Yeah.
All right, interesting there. And I want to move on. We step off from the head to toe injury. There's lots we could talk about that this morning. I want to place some emphasis in terms of handling this morning. When individuals, especially in a case of emergency, the handling and moving, especially someone is suspected of a spinal injury, because from time to time we know accidents do occur, and people just run and pull somebody out of a vehicle and stuff like that. You not knowing that what are you doing there could be causing more problems than helping that individual. I understand you're going to do it there with a good intention. You understand? But sometimes how you have handled that person or moving them around could cause more problem for them. Let's get into some more discussion, or if you can share more information this morning about the handling and moving of persons suspected of having a spinal injury. If you're suspected, well, first and foremost, you have to know that they have a spinal injury has occurred. I mean, how do you know that it's a spinal injury that's occurred? One, how would you suspect? I guess you will explain that. And what are the process that individual should go through in terms of handling that person when you're moving them around, or if you have to move them if it's necessary. Let's put it in the circumstances of an accident has occurred.
Yes, you may have heard people say. I remember there was a sort of a joking incident where there was this accident, and two persons seem to have died in that accident. And there was another gentleman who was in the accident who survived, but his body was badly broken, beaten, and he was in pain. And he reported to his friend, he said he was in this accident, two persons died, but he got the worst. So how did he get worse? You had two persons who died. So the point I'm making here is that he was in serious pain. In his opinion, the people who died, they were no longer in pain. He had to live with that pain, and the pain was so excruciating to him, maybe he should have died. The point I want to make here is that while people are happy for any chance at life, but to live with pain and to live with some level of disability sometimes could be more traumatizing than that. I don't know how death feels, but some people would believe, I'm better off dead rather than having to suffer. Now, misdiagnosis or mistreatment of an emergency could lead to people living with lifelong trauma and those kind of a pressure that they can face it. And we do not want to scare anybody away from trying to assist somebody because they heard GT and Mr. McIntyre say that you need to know what to do. And if you don't know what to do, you shouldn't touch anybody. We've had situations like this happen before. I remember a situation one time that a gentleman explained that there was this suspected drowning somewhere up in Batway. And the person was submerged, and they got him out from the water, and he was brought onto the sand somewhere. There were some cuts, and he was bleeding and everything of that sort. And the instruction from bystanders was that you should not touch him because you're going to make the situation worse. How do you do that? There were other circumstances where people saw other people with serious injuries. People were bleeding, and they would have said that this person has bled too much. They cannot live, so they forget them. And there are other circumstances where people saw people in serious injuries locked under a piece of board or concrete or in a vehicle, and they left them and they died. And there were other circumstances where people went in, pulled people out of vehicles. What they did was disrupt the nervous system, damaged some of the nerves, and these people became vegetable. So it is really, really important, underline what I have said, that someone who is in an emergency requiring some help, that first and foremost, one should consider whether or not there is spinal injury. So here we are to the point as how do we determine spinal injury? Remember, the brain and spinal cord, they form part of basically the central nervous system. Your nerve, it is critical. It is the electricity that connects and directs all of the energy, the movements, and so on through the muscles, and all of that are accompanied by the bones to make people move. Your body and muscles can be together, but if they do not have the nerves connection, they just will be limp, and there will be no feelings and no activities that can happen through them. The discussion we had about level of consciousness is also an indicator as to whether or not a person may have spinal injury. One, if you suspect that a person has fallen from such a high spot, whether you have visible signs or not, suspect that spinal injury could have occurred. Two, if blood or any damage is prevalent or visible anywhere in the head, suspect that there could be spinal injury. Three, if speaking to someone and they're not coherent in their response to you, they would what you call have altered mental status, you can also suspect that that person may have spinal injury. Four, excruciating pain that they may say to you, and let me stick a pin here. Someone who has fallen, you do not want to move them to figure whether or not they are in pain. Your assessment should be through form of questioning, triggering a response. You have to err on the side of caution by no or limited movement at all. If you are going to move that person for any form of assessment, the body must stay aligned. As a matter of fact, on approaching any person who is in a serious accident, trapped somewhere or may have fallen, your first instruction to them would be, please do not move. We've heard of situation, I had an experience that I heard of, well, not necessarily a physical experience, but somebody who was there explained to me of this gentleman who fell from a coconut tree. And when they got to the coconut tree, all they said he could have moved was his head. He was able to speak, and his head was able to move. He was allowed to move his head. He eventually died. That may not have been the ultimate cause of death, but could have been as well, because that thin strand of connection between the nerves or the spine right there could have been severed or broken by a simple movement. So one of the things that you want to encourage anybody you suspect of fallen, say to them, do not move. And your first approach then should be to stabilize the head. If you are the only person there, you either physically support the head while you call somebody else, or you can get things around you to pack on left and right side of the head so that it stays in one position. If when the person is being assessed that you need to move them, which you should not do by yourself, the body must stay as a complete unit, the head must be held together, and they must be log rolled into a position before being placed on a flat, solid piece of board or on a spine board where they will be transported for medical assessment.
Oh, no, Sylvan, let me ask you this. I've suspected someone may have fallen, and what are some of the signs that I have to look for in terms of knowing, or maybe is there a particular signs that is there a particular number of signs that I have to look for just in case to know if someone is has a spinal injury has occurred to someone?
Yes. Pain experience in the back, at the base of the neck, or the person may not have feeling in different parts of the body. So once a person complains of having numbness or otherwise, it may not necessarily be the spine itself, but it may be ruptured nerves that eventually comes through the connection of the spine that may be affected, so that person has limited movement. That in itself is a sign of caution that it could be more than just nerves that have been damaged, but it can go further back to having spinal injury. If you have spinal injury, it is very likely will affect the other parts of the nervous system. And so once you have numbness or excruciating, people call it like joking, or like you have a pin or a needle that seems to be pricking you somewhere. That kind of a pain is an indicator that a person could have spinal injury. Pressing against the pelvic region, the lower side of the hip, when pressing against that, because for layman information knowledge, the spine ends up in an area called the coccyx. That's just the base of the back, the end of the back, right at the buttocks. If you squeeze on either side and the person complains of severe pain, it means therefore that person is likely to have spinal injury. There are two other indicators that I would like you to mention. The person may have uncontrolled bowel motion. The person may be going off uncontrollably, or they might be urinating uncontrollably as well. That is another sign that a person could have spinal injury. And it happens sometime in men, a process called periprosm, where there could be an uncontrolled erection. That person could just seems to have gone up, and it is just unusual for that to happen. It is also one of the extremes, meaning that a person could also be having spinal injury or spinal problem.
Interesting there. I mean, is there a difference you can tell? If there a difference you can tell if an individual is just having a back pain, or that is just a muscular pain, or their spine is disrupted in any way? Is there any way you can tell?
Yeah, you can, because the body consists of muscle, bones, tissues, etc. But the skeleton and the central nervous system, the skeleton gives support to the entire body structure. The spine and central nervous system, remember that the spinal cord runs through a framework of bones called the vertebrae, yes? And there are a number of cartilages or discs in between there that support and protect the spine. So a person complaining of pain, it depends on where the pain is coming from, could determine whether or not there is spinal injury. If the person is complaining of pain towards the center section mainly of the back, you may want to suspect that could be the case. The other areas where you may have more muscle mass, it might be a muscle strain rather than sometimes spinal injury, but you are not the one to necessarily determine that. If a person has any level of discomfort, you're not a doctor, you're not the expert, you're not the specialist in that area. All you need to determine that this person may have something that is serious or may not be too serious. It is not your forte, it is not your job to fix that person. It is your responsibility to minimize that situation getting worse for the person to get to the expert who will be able to correct the situation or to help the person to recover.
You know, Sylvan, that's where the question of handling and moving the person comes into play here now. Let's speak to individuals who may have limited or no experience in an issue or circumstances that this occurs. What kind of advice would you offer them in terms of what to do and what not to do, if it's possible?
Yes, I can tell them. This is one of the reasons why we have this program. We are not making people experts. We hope that we can have enough time to create some experts from this. But people just need to have the basic knowledge as to what to do. So here are some of the basic things that one should have. If you listen to this program, you will know from this day forward that if somebody has fallen seriously, that you just do not go drag them or pull them out from any situation at all. You'd want to be able to check whether or not that person is conscious or unconscious. If you are alone, you would try to speak to this person to find out how conscious they are or what pain that they are experiencing. You are to ensure that that person do not move their head or any of their body unless you can instruct them how, or you can assist them how to do it. Yes? So the next thing you want to do is to call for help if a person is trapped. If the person has to be moved, they must be moved as a straight all-in-one unit. The next thing you would want to do is to have something that is flat and solid to get underneath that person. From the back of the head or the base of the skull, or you support the entire head so that it doesn't swing from left to right. And if you cannot get something that can support the body from the top of the head to the sole or the toe of the body, you may want to have something that can support at least down to the buttocks or just underneath, so that upper section of the body stays together and it does not shift from left to right. So if you have a situation where somebody is trapped in a vehicle, I recall a couple of years ago when there was this accident on the Morris Bishop Highway that's close to the SSU. There was one man who was already appeared to be dead in the vehicle, trapped behind the steering. And there was a lady who was trapped in, whether it was the same vehicle or another vehicle. When I got to the scene, there was a police officer, obviously trained in first aid. That female officer was holding on to the head of the female. And when I walked in, I really assured her that she was doing precisely the wrong thing. As the ambulance arrived and they brought the trolley, the orderlies and so on who came on the ambulance, they further assisted her with maintaining that one-line process, while the other fire people tried to extract what was restricting the female within that seat. So they were breaking and cutting. As they did so, they kept the body aligned. That female officer kept her hands along the side of the head, all the way down to the neck, holding on to this individual. And as they slid her out, kept the body together, they slid her right onto the trolley. Then they applied that support on either side of the neck of the female, got her on that trolley and whisked her into the ambulance. And today we're happy to report that she recovered effectively. I cannot tell the exact state, but reports that came after that accident, she was high in praise to the female officer and those who assisted her then, because if she was not handled properly, today she could have been a vegetable. And we've seen situations like these where people with good intention, wanting to help others, but not knowing the correct thing to do.
All right.
I had two other situations, again, involving female that met in accidents. And people came to help. And what they did, because they knew first aid themselves, this is, again, one of the underlying reasons why individuals must know first aid themselves, because the life that you save could likely be yours. The injury that you prevent from getting worse could likely be yours. These ladies told me in their experience, they said to the individuals, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to handle me. And they saved their limb because they did not jerk the limb. They held it together, put a splint on it so that it was not dangling from left to right, and was able to extract the individual safely from the trapped vehicle.
All right. So when we due for a break, we're going to take that break, and when we come back, we're going to invite phone calls from the listening and viewing public out there. There may be a question or two you may like to ask. Those of you via our social media platform, Facebook, if there's a comment via you would like to ask, I will pass it on to Sylvan also, or WhatsApp, you can do that also. Let's take that break when we come back. The number 435-2041, that's the number you can call if you would like to ask a question or two. It certainly will be welcomed. We're coming right back.
On the road with the NLA, live on Hot 98, Thursdays at 10 a.m. and on GBN Television, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Meet the players, the agents, learn more about the exciting games of the NLA and how it has been transforming lives across the country. Promotion runs until December 15th.
see mentioned the wing high, then you have things like man, you must come back, you know. We have the low power there.
It is kind of like the same man, and it's just different name for the same kind of thing.
And last but not least, I just want to say to all the men who saw me, call me, and ask for piece of cake, I'm baking this weekend.
Join us Fridays at 8 on GBN Television, K105 FM, GBN's Facebook page, and YouTube channel for We Culture.
It is important to know what your road signs and markings means. The zigzag lines means you should not park in the marked area. Parking is allowed inside the solid white lines on the edge of the road. Remember, look out for pedestrians. Pedestrians, be sure the vehicle comes to a complete stop before crossing. These tips can save your life. These tips can make our roads safer for all users. Be safe, be seen, be smart. A message from the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force.
Say welcome back to our listeners and viewers this morning. It's to the point for today, Monday, the 7th of November, 2022. And together with my co-host, Mr. Sylvan McIntyre, we're taking your phone calls within this segment. The number is 435-2041, 435-2041. If you've been listening and you understand the nature of the topic that we've been discussing this morning, you're free to ask a question or two on it. So your phone calls are welcome. Those of you via our Facebook page, you could also, if you do have a question that you would like to ask via the comment section, you can certainly do that. I will certainly read it out. Those of you via WhatsApp, if you prefer to do it via the WhatsApp, you can send out a question there, and I will certainly pass it on to Sylvan. Sylvan, as we wait the phone calls, there's a question that came to mind that I would like to ask. Yeah. Well, in terms of handling and moving of individuals.
Yes.
Does it necessarily have to? Is there any other emergency where handling and moving of a person has to be done in a particular way, not special, but in a particular way, not only in terms of a spinal injury? Is there any other?
Yes, there are many of them actually, because as I indicated before, you can really make a situation worse if you do not handle that situation properly. There might be instances where a person or a situation may be toxic. And we established early on as well that you only move someone from the area or the area from the person if you consider it to be dangerous or further danger could be experienced. You want to limit the movement or cause movement to happen in situations like these.
All right, Sylvan, just to hold up there, for we do have a caller. I guess we could always come back to my question after. Let's take the caller.
Yeah, sure.
I guess we lost the caller there for whatever reason. I guess we lost the caller there. Guess if the caller was not that patient in holding on there, so we lost the caller. 435-2041, that's the number. And I see the call is coming back. Let's take it again. Caller, good morning, welcome.
A person, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I have been listening in parts. It is a wonderful program. I would like to suggest that such a program be taken to the schools. Why? Because the young people, this will interest them. They may have a friend or family member who probably might find his or herself in that position, and the principals mentioned they could apply it. Having it on radio is quite good, but how many persons have been listening? That's why I'm suggesting that you go to the schools and you probably take students from, let's say, Form 3 up, 3, 4, 5, and that would do the nation good, having these young people to put into practice what I have heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution this morning, and I think that's a pretty good suggestion, Sylvan. I'm not sure if the time permit that you were able to do it.
The caller is on the ball because the way to the future is through our children, And the way to parents as well is through children. And that's a good idea in terms of getting the program to schools. I have been doing some programs at schools. They have been helping to establish little teams at school, and hopefully with time becoming sometime more available later on with me, I should be able to make that kind of a contribution towards developing. So it's something that could be explored. It may take some resourcing to be able to do that. It would take a team of people to do that effectively, and definitely maybe down the road we might invite other people to be part of that. And I like the angle of this is developing Grenada. This is, transforming us to a point where we become better in emergency response.
Here's a question, Sylvan, from the Facebook comment section there, and this individual is asking. They're saying that lots of divers get caught or they get the bends from tank diving. How do you give assistance to one who get caught who caught the bends on the sea? In the boat, or I guess from the sea to the boat, and should the tank diver get into a chamber after diving, something of that nature?
I know he's probably speaking about the hyperbaric chambers and so on that are very scarce in some cases. I understand. I think as you may have hyperbaric chambers. I am not too sure whether or not the General Hospital do have. But that bends that people speak about, or that lack of oxygen, or that what you call the person goes so deep where the normal process of the air that they require, it has become limited, and so it gets it sometime into the bloodstream and all of that, and creates some level of complication. There is good reason for people who are going out to dive to have what you call the marine type first aid training, and the training that is specific to that kind of for that kind of a skill set. So people who are involved in the diving industry, my recommendation is that you get the training before going out. The team of persons, and I'm sure you do not go out diving as individuals. The best thing to do is to have somebody who's trained in that level of first aid. But critical to any situation where somebody has lacked oxygen, the only other thing outside of having ventilators on board in some place, the only other thing that one can turn to is the aspect of the human life-saving machine, CPR.
All right.
Where a person will get the chest compression and the rescue breath.
Sylvan, just not to cut into you, but we do have a caller online that's been holding there for a wee bit. Let's see if that caller is still there, and if they'd like to share some information. Good morning to you, caller. Welcome.
Yes, so good morning. Your program is the stage of your program is far gone as to what I decide to say, but I mean you would come back in it in a little while. Now, you make reference a while ago when you started your program concerning Belize. All right. Now, I turned to a radio station yesterday when they had their oldie goldies, and from St. Vincent. And they broke to give the weather forecast about 5:30. I thought there was an emergency, but there was no emergency out there. But they feel it fit to break in at a program like that to give the weather forecast. That is by Mr. Archer. When they already given it after the news on Friday afternoon or Saturday afternoon. So what I'm saying is that we have a lot of radio program here, and the weather forecast is given most time after the news, and then way tomorrow, the next day again, they give it. I thought, why we cannot do this? I mean, there are some radio station in Sotes, when they give the forecast after the news, then a long time again, maybe nearly a whole day before they give it. I wonder if they cannot tape whatsoever they was given, and then they play it some time of the program, because most of these fishermen have to go out at sea and they want to know the situation of the weather. Not all of them listen to the news to find out what is the situation with them, how they're going at sea. So you break through now and then to let them know what is happening before they leave shore. And I wonder if this is possible with our radio station here in Grenada. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller, for your contribution this morning. So do you understand where the caller is coming from, Sylvan? I mean, he's saying that, there could be times during programming where breaks can occur and the forecast could be announced what it's going to be like. I think that's what the caller is trying to say.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, when I was at NADMA, there were a couple of comments similar to that came through. When people said that when the weather bulletins are given, particularly when you face that threat of a tropical cyclone, the time span in between is too far. I remember that being a comment. And what the discussion surrounded was whether or not the radio stations could continue to give the information, albeit that the Met offices, they do have a fixed period within which they would give bulletins, and they would update it or give it more frequently based on what is happening. Listeners have also be mindful that things can change in between the last one that were given, and if we are saying to them to listen to your local radio station, it means that when they listen, they should be getting they should be getting frequent updates on it. So the caller's comment do have some merit, but that will also depend on the radio stations and the TV stations' ability to be able to reproduce the information. It could form part of a wider discussion as to how entities could become more user-friendly, more useful to members of the listening public. So that point, yes, it is relevant, and it is something that we can look into. I am not in a position to really effect such something, but I can make recommendation and a suggestion as to how the public, if you listen to some other stations internationally or otherwise, you would find that people speak of, I listen to that television station, only repeat news that they have. But what you find with the repeat news, that the people who heard it at 9 a.m. would be a different set of people that might be listening to it at 10, because the 9 a.m. people who are engaged otherwise. So sometimes the repeat does have its relevance, its usefulness, because it captures those who were not able to capture it at that particular time.
Okay. So we do have a caller, and time is upon us, but we do have a caller. Caller, good morning and welcome. Sorry for having you hold there. Good morning.
That's all right. I understand. Another thought has evaded my mind. I am not very au fait with what goes on in schools, both primary and secondary, but I think somewhere along the lines, the Scout movement and Girl Guide movement should be rekindled, so that you have Scouts, you have cadets, and all of these people should be au fait with how to take care of a person who's in a serious accident. So those who are listening, the ministry, etc., should take this idea into very serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Sylvan, we have come to that point of the morning where we have to take a wrap for today. And as always, interesting program. Hopefully we could get this done next week again with another topic and series of conversation that we could have that could certainly share the information with our viewing and listening public. Any final outro you'd like to have before we take a wrap this morning?
So finally, again, I would like to thank your GBN and all our viewers, followers, listeners to the program. I just want to again commend what has been done so far in terms of the number of people who have been trained nationally. I am assured that we have made some stride, but it's not sufficient to the point where we are seeing the kind of response to emergencies that we think would be best appropriate. The percentage must increase, and the number of people who are community empowered to respond to emergencies.
All right, Sylvan, thanks once again. Until we do this next week, have a great day, man.
Thank you, and yourself.
All right. Hey, folks, that's where we come to the end of To The Point for today, Monday, the 7th of November. Join us again for another edition tomorrow. Until then, have a good one, folks. That's why I say goodbye.